Roger there. All right, now, one of our next guests calls the whole episode a, quote, frightening window into the immaturity of the president. The other says it was not done by accident and that Trump sees a divide in the Democratic Party. With me now, Republican strategist Doug Heye and Democratic strategist Mike Morey. Mike, let's begin with you. You're here with us in Atlanta. Your reaction to what we saw, it just seems Donald Trump tweets out abuse and names and nasty things every day. Was it really Nancy Pelosi saying it's a cover-up that fired him up like that?
I think actually in this case, Donald Trump is so easily triggered that he went into a meeting. Earlier he heard the impeachment word used. There's been some discussion whether Nancy Pelosi was for it or not for it. She talks about the fact that there may be a cover-up underway, and Donald Trump is saying to himself, someone who's really interested in his own personal brand, says to himself, am I going to be the third president in the history of the United States who gets impeached? And I do believe he was triggered, and I think that's frightening, because if you have a president who will demonstrate to the world how easily triggered he can be, imagine what someone can do with that. Imagine a negotiation with President Donald Trump, and an insult like he throws all the time, or some sort of accusation can throw him into such a tizzy that he could storm out of a meeting and blow up War and Peace, for goodness sake. His first responsibility is to the 320 million Americans who depend on him to get things done. And if the Speaker of the House, in talking about their constitutional responsibility of oversight, talks about the notion that they're not cooperating in the oversight process, can trigger him, imagine what Vladimir Putin could do.
She gets under his skin. Doug Heye, what did you make of it? I mean, do you think that Donald Trump was just riled by Nancy Pelosi? Surely he's heard worse. He's certainly given worse.
Yeah, I mean, that could be part of it. Certainly, I don't want to psychoanalyze this, but go back to what Donald Trump has talked about in his books previously. His favorite negotiating tactic is to walk out of a meeting. He's done this before. Presumably, he'll do it again. So this clearly wasn't done by accident. He's written and talked about how he likes to do this, how it works for him. So then he looks at what is the political advantage to this. And I think if you see how Democrats are divided on this, some are pushing impeachment. Pelosi, I think very responsibly, is pushing back on her own Democrats to stop that because she sees it as a bad idea. But he sees this as an advantage. It's something that will rile his base up. It will raise a lot of money for the Trump reelection campaign. It also sets him up potentially to say, you know, if they go the route of impeachment, to say, these people have been trying to destroy me since the day that they took over the House of Representatives. I'm trying to get bipartisan solutions. Whether he is or isn't is almost immaterial at that point. That's the series of arguments that he's going to try and make to voters. It's certainly the tenor that his campaign is taking right now.
But it hasn't worked. The negotiation, he tried that tactic when we were talking about a wall. He shut down the government. He tried that tactic. He walked out. He left people hanging, and he failed on that one. It's not an effective strategy for him.
We're talking about
two different things. It won't be effective this time either.
I think we're talking about two different things. I'm talking about whether or not he thinks he can get reelected or not, and what the best path is for that. We can talk about the debacle of the shutdown all day long, and having worked through government shutdowns, I know how, frankly, stupid they are when they're enacted. That's not the conversation. Did Donald Trump do this
the point you are making,
so?
Doug, is a salient one, and let's touch on that, Doug. You know, he riles his base. He gets that base is rock solid. We saw the approval ratings again today, 40. It just doesn't move no matter what he does. The fact is it not? That's not enough to get re-elected. Meanwhile, the rest of the country are going, what is going on here? You don't get re-elected with that base, do you?
Neither party gets reelected solely by its base. So it's about how the rest of the country then views this. Those numbers aren't moving, but they're not moving in either direction, which they're not great numbers for Trump.
But that's not enough to win.
But every Democrat will tell you Donald Trump can still win re-election. And why is that? Because we're such a polarized country right now, and because this is not overwhelmingly going to be an election about persuasion, but an election about motivation and which base can get its voters out the best. This is a very different scenario than what we typically see in the past.
And that's true. But the problem is going to be for Donald Trump is he's not getting things done for his base. Talk about farmers for a second. You have farmers throughout the Midwest of the United States right now who are furious about his actions on tariffs. Because why? He's not delivering for them. He's actually making it more expensive for them to do business. He's not delivering. That's the problem. So he can rile his base. But if he doesn't deliver for those folks who took a chance on him, who did so because they just simply didn't like Hillary Clinton, like the folks in Pennsylvania who are right now bailing on Donald Trump's by leaps and bounds, he's going to have a big problem.
Well, Hillary Clinton's not running. Go ahead, Doug.
Donald Trump can still win, so Democrats need to figure out why is it that Donald Trump, who is epically unpopular in this country, and I'd agree with Michael on that, why is it that Donald Trump can still win? And if Democrats don't have a good answer for that, and I think impeachment certainly isn't a good answer for that, they need to go back to the drawing board. That's a real problem for Democrats.
When it comes to the strategy of the administration, Doug, I'll throw this to you because you're in touch with Republicans. I mean, one thing that strikes me, if they keep saying no, 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 from departments through to subpoenas, through to document requests, and just refuse it, what are Republicans going to do when there's a Democrat in the White House? Republicans are running the committees and they want stuff. Don't they set up a precedent here where the Democrats can turn around and say you get nothing?
Sure.
Same as what you did to us.
Sure. And I would say part of the reason I think that impeachment is such a bad idea is I worked in the House of Representatives when a Republican House did it to a Democratic President, Bill Clinton. It didn't work electorally for Republicans. I also thought it was bad for the country. It's not just parlor games that we get to talk about here. There are real impacts. But the other thing I would say, and it speaks to some of what Michael was saying earlier, the rest of the country isn't focusing on who appears at a judiciary committee or not. They're worried about their jobs, their incomes, and whether they're going to grow or not. They're worried about trade, if depending on what sector they're working on. So if Donald Trump is talking about the economy all day, every day, he's in a good position to win. If he's talking about other things, if it's not dividing Democrats,
he can't do it.
A lot of people.
He's incapable of doing it, but you're absolutely right.
But again, the question is, why can he win then? Everything Michael says is about how Donald Trump has to lose. Why is it then that Democrats concede that Donald Trump can win if he's so unpopular?
Well, he did last time and everyone thought he wasn't going to. So, yeah, absolutely he can. Michael, I wanted to ask you about the whole impeachment strategy. It certainly seems that Nancy Pelosi, she doesn't seem to want to go down that road.
She doesn't.
She wants to do incremental inquiries. She wants to get documents. And does she have a point that while a lot of Democrats are saying it's not about the strategy, it's about the issues, it's about here is a president that needs to be impeached for the country because of the Constitution, because of all the other stuff. But Nancy Pelosi is looking strategically and saying the only way Donald Trump will be effectively beaten is at the polls. And there is an argument for that,
yeah,
too.
I mean,
you impeach him, that really is going to rile up his base.
And not only is it going to rile up the base, but the fact is you're going to put people who are in marginal districts who won last time in uncomfortable positions and threaten their reelection. The reason why the Democrats came to power is that I know there's a big narrative that it's sort of a leftward tilt and there's activism on the base, and there is, and it's been a good contributor to the party, getting folks energized. However, the reason Nancy Pelosi is the speaker is because of the moderates who won throughout the country. And the folks in those moderate districts are certainly, they do want oversight. They want oversight of the president. They don't want a president who is sort of running roughshod of the Constitution, but they also want to see their incomes go up. They want to see their kids go to college. They want to make sure they keep jobs. So she's right. Now, that said, she has a responsibility, the House has a responsibility to fulfill its constitutional requirement to provide oversight. And I think she's in a difficult spot. She's trying to thread the needle here, provide that oversight, make sure they're doing their jobs. There is something to be said for do your job, and that is part of their job.
Doug, I got to give you 10 seconds.
Yeah, Bill Clinton lied under oath and Republicans impeached him. That might have been the constitutionally correct thing to do. It was a terrible idea, and I hope Democrats learn from that.
Yeah, and one of the articles of impeaching Nixon was refusing subpoenas. So there's a lot to talk about. What
comes around goes around.
Yeah, well, you got that. Doug, hi, always a pleasure. Michael Morey, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.